So let's talk about the VALKYR rework. Can the Warframe survive hard content in Warframe after the rework? To be honest, it depends on what hard content you mean exactly. If it's Archimedia levels, then it's fine. Then if it's the level cap, the Warframe can survive with the right setup, but you'll be sweating yourself hard. Okay, let me explain why I said these by Vember. We finally got our hands on the new styled VALKYR, and I just want to share with you my experience playing the Warframe. We will talk here, of course, survivability setups after the removal of Hysteria's invulnerability, combos that you should know and most needed by VALKYR right now, especially after the Slam meta rework. And finally, I want to share to you a build wherein you don't need the helminth to further boost the damage of VALKYR. But of course, I will be sharing helminth builds also for those who care. So, why no helminth builds? If you are curious about that, then it's probably because of her updated ripline ability. A couple of days ago, I shared how really good Oraxia's ultimate ability, allowing you to web zip in a very far distance. In fact, it's really fun to showcase it in open world areas, as the ability lets you web zip on any surfaces, as long as it's not created by enemies like the snow globe from Eximus units. While it's not something most players would use in their farming builds, still, the ability web zip in long distance is just too good. The best part is, if you are a VALKYR main and also love speed frames, then her ripline is now mad when it comes to mobility. It has the same mechanic as Oraxia, wherein you web zip from where you point your crosshair. As long as it's a surface, VALKYR can web zip using her ripline skill. And what's crazier is that it has over 170 meters range with overextended and stretch, the same as Oraxia's ultimate skill. Now, this is really great when it comes to traversal and mobility, but how about damage? Well, to tell you honestly, it's decent against trash mobs in steel path levels, or those enemies that don't have enough resistance, such as armor and shields. They can easily get wrecked by the skill. And the good part is, once you latch into an enemy, Ripline has the capability to group enemies wherein its radius is dependent on the range mods you equipped on VALKYR. With Stretch, you will gain 13 meters radius of grouping with the skill. Now, another thing that you should know is that the damage of the ability doesn't just rely on the power strength mods you add in your VALKYR. Most of the high damage will come from the mods of your melee weapon. If you are using your Exalted Claw, then the puncture and slash of your fourth ability gets added to the slash damage of Ripline, plus the melee mods you equipped on the Exalted Claw. I hope that it makes sense somehow, but to make it short and simple, be sure to mod your Exalted Claws and give decent power strength on VALKYR to increase the damage of Ripline. Also, Combo Counter works with Ripline, increasing its damage further. In fact, it has a special mechanic wherein if you cast the skill within 1 second after the previous cast, its damage will get multiplied by 200%, and 400% multiplier if you cast it after the second recast. Basically, Ripline is a very versatile skill right now, as it offers VALKYR great mobility, good grouping mechanic, and as well as mini-nuking against enemies. I always use the first slot of VALKYR for subsume builds, but after the rework, I'm very hesitant on putting any subsume builds because Ripline is a great and interesting skill now. That's just a personal opinion, but I know that you'll agree with me once you have used the new VALKYR in the Ileweaver update. Now, many would say that nothing really changed with her second ability, but in my opinion, it received the most needed quality of life change after the rework. Warcry is just the same as it increases attack speed and armor of the Warframe, but Digital Extremes made a huge improvement and added the capability to recast the skill even if its duration have not expired yet. The purpose of the Eternal War Augment is to maintain the Warcry buff with each enemy kill, but honestly, I have now the option to remove the augment from my build since I can simply recast the skill whenever I want, or if it's close to expiration. Also, I really can feel the impact of the removal of invulnerability on Hysteria through energy maintenance for VALKYR right now. Hunter Adrenaline mod is a best-in-slot for the Warframe in my opinion, as it gives you the energy maintenance to keep your Hysteria active. This is just me, but I feel like I'm better when it comes to maintaining energy right now compared to the past Hysteria, with invulnerability. Don't get me wrong, it's still easy to maintain energy back then with all the energy setup we have in Warframe. But right now, I just feel like I don't need to pause attacking just to give some time restoring my energy. Remember that Hysteria triples the armor bonus of VALKYR when it's active. And this is great with adaptation in hard steel path levels, and even in Archimedia missions. While the Hunter Adrenaline mod just restore energy constantly, and like I have said, I don't need to pause attacking. With the status immunity also, I am certain that there's no knockdowns that can stun lock me and leave me vulnerable to heavy damage. But the question though, will Hysteria be good in hard levels? As I have said earlier, it depends on what kind of hard mission you are doing. I have done a solo deep Archimedia mission, which got the Alchemy, Survival, and the Fragmented One Assassination missions, and I did finish the whole run without breaking a sweat with Rework VALKYR. However, before doing this run, I failed multiple because in the Fragmented boss fight, I just can't keep up my survivability against the boss. I did fix this by adding the combination of Arcane Battery and Quick Thinking. This serves as another layer of survivability for the Warframe. Arcane Battery will give the full 1000 energy bonus because of the high armor value of VALKYR. This pairs well with Quick Thinking, as the higher the energy, the more lethal damage you can stop. The good news is, VALKYR also has lifesteal, so you can easily regain health. It's an endless loop of regaining health with your claws, then getting damage and gaining energy with Hunter Adrenaline. This kind of setup is not that useful in normal star chart though, as the damage dealt by enemies is very low that you can't rely on Hunter Adrenaline for energy maintenance. But in Steel Path levels and beyond, this is the best energy and survivability setup in my opinion. So basically, Arcane Battery is my new best in slot right now, and on the other Arcane slot, I decided to go with Arcane Avenger for the red crit damage. However, you can always use other Arcanes if you want, as red crit is optional, or if you are doing a Wrathful Advance Subsume build on your VALKYR, then you can always slot another Arcane instead of Avenger. Moving on, I did say that Eternal War is not the best augment for VALKYR in my opinion right now. The most interesting for me is Prolonged Paralysis, as my god finally, they removed the shield requirement for this skill. Because of this, VALKYR can also take advantage of the shield gating mechanic, but not always though, as she will always get hit right now in Hysteria mode. The best part about this augment is it pulls enemies towards VALKYR, and they will be exposed to Ground Finisher. And remember, Ground Finishers are one of the highest damage output attacks of VALKYR right now. This is another reason why I added a range mod on my VALKYR, instead of just focusing on duration and power strength like I always do in the past. However, if you are not planning to do any Ground Finishers, then this mod slot is free for any mods that you deem most helpful for your VALKYR build. Before we move to the Exalted Claw build, I would like to discuss about her passive. First of all, every melee hit of VALKYR will increase her rage meter and grants you 300% melee damage at max. The melee damage boost can stack with other melee damage, but remember that it will have some diminishing returns. Best way to optimize your build is to mix elemental mods, critical, and faction mods. But then again, faction mods are kind of annoying, as you will need to replace it every time you face another faction. Critical damage boost is also good, and you can just always go with a condition overload setup if you have something that can inflict statuses to enemies. Say, if you are planning a condition overload VALKYR, then I strongly recommend using a mechanized hound with the synergized prospectus mod. This will trigger multiple statuses when this mod is activated, and this will increase you condition overload damage buff. The best part is, since you are a melee frame, Primed Pack Leader will be great for the companion's survivability, as it will give you constant overguard. But wait, there's another companion option. Only this time, it will boost the survivability of VALKYR. If you will use the Panzer Vulpa Fila with the Hunter Recovery mod, plus its usual Symbiosis mod, then you can add another layer of survivability to VALKYR. Martyr Symbiosis get down and heal you if you have received a lethal damage, while the combo of Viral Quills and Hunter Recovery will constantly give you health aside from your Hysteria lifesteal. Finally, let's talk about the 5-second invulnerability part of VALKYR's passive. Now, most of my past VALKYR rework videos are critical, and the main reason why is because I was curious of whether or rage stack you gain per hit will be fast or not. I'm just glad that every hit does increase your rage meter fast, and that is why I strongly recommend adding primed reach in your exalted claws also. In the fragmented 1 boss fight, I managed to finish the mission, relying on the invulnerability passive alone. I wasn't able to heal, but the passive kept me going until I finally downed the fragmented one. But mind you, this is only the version wherein I just collected 30 Murmur Eyes in Steel Path levels. The Secret Murmur boss fight is hellish, and I wasn't able to do anything with VALKYR since it always deactivated my Hysteria. In just a couple of minutes, I was down and failed the mission. After playing the Warframe for a couple of hours, I can honestly say that the rework VALKYR right now is amazing when you are not doing level cap missions or any secret boss fights in Warframe, like the fragmented one that requires 60 Murmur Eyes. It's a dependable Warframe for those who enjoy casual gameplay and farming. But for those hardcore level cap players, then like I have said earlier, it's a very sweaty experience, as you'll need to be aware all the time about VALKYR's health pool. By the way, I almost forgot to mention that aside from ground finisher, spin attack, and as well as that heavy attack wherein VALKYR performs an axe kick is the best moveset that deals massive damage for the Warframe right now. That is why I also recommend adding Tenno-Kai mod in your Exalted Claws Exilis mod slot. Of course, don't forget the Violet Archon shards for more critical damage boost for your Exalted Claw. Then, using Naramon plus the Dexterity Arcanes from both your primary and secondary will help maintain your combo counter for more damage boost. Now, the rest of the video is my full solo elite deep Archimedia run with rework VALKYR. You can skip it if you trust me, or you can just watch some tidbits to see the performance of VALKYR on this type of mission. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.
is up. You've done quite well. Handily done, Construct.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.